Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning and may peace and prosperity be upon us all. Selamat pagi dan salam sehat dari Singapura. On behalf of the organizer, Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Singapore, in collaboration with Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia, Singapore Fish Merchant General Association, and Punggol Fish Merchant Association Singapore, I would like to warmly welcome all of you to the second webinar and virtual business matching on fisheries, today, 3rd of December 2020. We are delighted and honored to have prominent officials to grace us with their presence. We have the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to Singapore, His Excellency Suryo Pratomo. Selamat pagi, Bapak. And we also have Ibu Artati Widiarti, Director General of Product Competitiveness, and Bapak Mahmud, the Director of Marketing from Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia. Selamat pagi, Ibu dan Bapak. Selamat datang dalam webinar hari ini. And from Singapore side, we have Mr. Goh Tiam Chue, President of Singapore Fish Merchant Association. Hi, sir. Good morning. And Mr. Daniel Pei, Chairman, Punggol Fish Merchant Association, Singapore. Good morning, Pak. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this webinar and virtual business matching is the second series of our virtual events on fisheries. Today, we feature 15 Indonesian exporters, particularly for the commodity of fresh seafood. And they are PT Wahyu Pradana Bina Mulia from Makassar, South Sulawesi, CV Alam Laut from Tangerang, Banten, CV Buana Laut Nusantara from Makassar, South Sulawesi, PT Matsya Raja Arnawa Stambapura from Kupang, East Nusa Tenggara, PT Perikanan Nusantara from North Jakarta, PT Istana Cipta Sembada from Sidoarjo, East Java, PT Perintis Jaya International from Denpasar, Bali, Perum Perikanan Indonesia from Lamongan, East Java, PT Saudagar Buta Mangkasara from Makassar, South Sulawesi, PT Kelola Mina Laut from Gresik, East Java, PT Ethnovation International from Surabaya, East Java, PT Kausar Maritim Jaya from Depok, West Java, PT Muria Bahari Indonesia from Kudus, Central Java, PT Oceana Cahaya Nusantara, and CV 5 Mutiara Indomal from Tarakan, North Kalimantan. From the list I've just mentioned, we can see that the exporters are coming from different parts of Indonesia, and even some of them coming from the eastern part of Indonesia. We hope that this event today will assist in further increasing the export of fresh seafood from Indonesia to Singapore. And we would like to inform the participants that after all the remarks, there'll be question and answer sessions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And you can also leave your question typed in the chat box. If the time permits, we will answer the questions, and we will also note them down for our reference. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now commence the event by listening to the remarks of the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to Singapore, His Excellency Suryo Pratomo. Silakan, Bapak.
Thank you, Ika. Director General of Product Competitiveness, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries Indonesia, Ibu Artati Widiarti, President of Singapore Fish Merchant General Association, Mr. Goh Tiam Chue, Chairman Punggol Fish Merchant Association Singapore, Mr. Daniel P., Representative of Fisheries Industry from Indonesia and Singapore, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I hope you are all in a good health. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to welcome you all at the webinar and virtual business matching on the fresh seafood organized by the Embassy of Indonesia in Singapore in collaboration with the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of Indonesia, Singapore Fish Merchant General Association, and Punggol Fish Merchant Association Singapore. This is the second series of webinar showcasing the importance of seafood from Indonesia. The previous webinar conducted almost a month ago, featuring 15 exporters of chilled and frozen seafood from Indonesia, and we had more than 20 business-to-business matching. Today, we have 15 exporters of fresh seafood from different parts of Indonesia, from Jakarta to East Java, from Makassar to East Nusa Tenggara. All exporters are very enthusiastic to join the webinar with the hope to increase more export to Singapore and worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country in the world. As such, fishery sector is crucial in the livelihood of Indonesians. Many of our communities live in the coastal area and depend their income solely by selling seafood products. This is the reason why the government of Indonesia has committed to promote sustainable fisheries, among others, by actively combating illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. As a result, Indonesia fisheries export has increased in the last 5 years with main destination to United States, Japan, China, ASEAN countries, and European Union. As for Singapore, Indonesia is one of the largest countries of seafood. More than 20% of Singapore seafood import is from Indonesia. The products are varied, from chilled and frozen products to fresh seafood like tenggiri, snapper or kakap, lobster, and kerapu or groupers. However, it is important to note that based on the data from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, the fisheries export from Indonesia to Singapore has not significantly grown in the past 5 years. It is therefore very timely that we conduct this series of webinars. As the ambassador of Indonesia in Singapore, I mandate to strengthen the two countries' economic trade, including in the fishery sectors. Despite the challenges that we face currently due to the COVID pandemic, we remain hopeful that this virtual event will assist in enhancing business-to-business relations between Indonesia and Singapore. Ibu Artati, Mr. Goh, Mr. Daniel, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that many Singapore seafood importers still wish to visit and meet their counterpart and potential exporters in Indonesia. It is now made possible with the established reciprocal green lane or travel corridor arrangement between Indonesia and Singapore. We hope this arrangement will help facilitate essential travel for businesses from both countries, including from the fishery sectors. To conclude, I would like to thank all participants who joined this webinar, our colleague from Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries Indonesia, Singapore Fish Merchant General Association, and Punggol Fish Merchant Association Singapore, who have been strongly supporting us. I would also like to thank the embassy team for their hard work to realize this event. Let me assure you that the embassy team and I are always open and ready to respond to your inquiries and to enhance economic relations of the two countries. I wish you a productive and fruitful webinar and business-to-business meeting. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Surya Pratomo. There was a very interesting speech, and it is interesting that you highlighted that more than 20% of Singapore imports of seafood coming from Indonesia. This is why the webinar today is very important and also very timely, and we hope to promote more seafood exports coming from Indonesia to Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, now let us listen to the remarks from Mr. Goh Tiam Chui, President of Singapore Fish Merchant Association. You may have the floor, sir.
Okay. 先的印尼大使经济部还有各海产业商家，大家好。
Good day to Mr. Ambassador, representatives of the Indonesian Embassy and all Indonesian seafood suppliers, including the ones in Singapore.
我是新加坡伊朗宜商总会主席吴天水先生。
I am the current president of Singapore Fish Merchant Association, Mr. Goh Tiang Chui.
我也是嘉化松记的董事长。
I'm also the current CEO of Kawat Songki Fish Agent Private Limited.
首先，今天非常感谢印尼的经济部安排。
We would like to thank the Indonesian Embassy for creating the opportunity to organize this webinar and virtual business matching on fresh seafood.
这一场的 Zoom 的印尼与新加坡海产商家的对接会，安排这一场 Zoom 的商家对接会新加坡、伊朗中央鱼市场共有110个商家。
Singapore's fishery port at Jurong has close to 110 seafood wholesalers.
这个从它的网上是可以查到这个商家的记录
You can find the information on the Singapore Fish Merchant Association website.
我们每天从这个亚细安各地进口200吨到300吨的这个冰鲜海产品。
We take close to 200 and 300 tons of fresh seafood products from Southeast Asia every single day.
新加坡目前海产品与加工海产品种类也非常多元化。
Singapore's current seafood products, together with processed seafood products, are diverse and plentiful.
新加坡海产业者目前也在积极的数码化转型，把这个海产品销售出去。
Singapore's seafood wholesalers are currently relying on digitalization to export our products.
新加坡政府也对海产食品行业大力的支持与发展。
The Singapore government has been giving their full support to the seafood industry in terms of expansion and development.
希望未来把亚细安的各家资源引进来做出去，向世界发扬光大。
We hope that in the near future, we will be able to work together with the suppliers of Southeast Asia to import and export their products on an international scale to bring the industry to greater heights.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chi, for your remarks. And you highlighted also the fact that Singapore government fully supports the seafood industries in Singapore. And we also have full support from the government of Indonesia. So I believe it's a good sign for both countries' collaboration on fishery sectors. So ladies and gentlemen, let us now also listen to the remarks from Mr. Daniel Pe, Chairman of Punggol Fish Merchant Association, Singapore.
Hi, good morning, His Excellency, Ambassador to Singapore, Indonesia Ambassador to Singapore. Good afternoon to all the parties involved in this webinar. I'm Daniel, representing this Punggol Fish Merchant Association. I'm very glad today to share this speech with everyone. I'm the second generation of the fishery industry, starting from my father, passing down here. And majority of my imports are from Indonesia, from Makassar, Jakarta, and Surabaya. We used to do from Medan also. So it's a great opportunity right now today to business match with the parties involved in this webinar today. And very excited actually to see what can we offer to import from Indonesia. Like I say, as we move on to as Indonesia is moving on to the younger generation, more and more platforms are formed, such as Aruna, to promote trading for fish direct to Singapore and cutting off the middleman. As a result, the more profit for the fishermen as a whole. So in Singapore, we are working on a platform also to facilitate trade between the seafood from Indonesia and across the region. We have the platform called the Seafood Exchange, and hopefully, of course, how can we improve the livelihood of the fishermen in Indonesia? How can we improve the standards? Can we share the information with the Indonesian authorities on how can we improve the standards? Maybe like how would I say, like like how the Wagyu beef in Japan, they have a certain quality control. Maybe Indonesian fisheries can come up with a certain standards, and like the Tenggiri or from Surabaya, or raising the standards of the fishery in Indonesia, thus commanding a better price and helping the Indonesian fishermen. So as a whole, hopefully, we as a merchant in Singapore can after today's webinar can import more seafood supplies and make it grow to a better volume. As Mr. Goh has mentioned, Singapore government is very supportive to help us do international trade, and hopefully through Indonesian partners, hopefully we can expand export to Europe and America through our own contacts. Yes. For this, thank you everyone for your time. I look forward to a business matching later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel, for your remarks. And you also mentioned some important points. The first one is about how to improve the standards of our fresh seafood and the importance of sharing information about the requirements that are needed by Singapore importers to Indonesian exporters. And I believe that this event, this webinar is a very good platform to share information about the requirements of what are needed from Indonesian exporters to meet the requirements of Singapore importers. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we may now proceed to listen to the remarks from Ibu Artati Widiarti, Director General of Product Competitiveness, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and best wishes for all of us. His Excellency Mr. Suryo Pratomo, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to Singapore, Mr. Goh Tiong Chui, President of Singapore Fish Merchants General Association, Mr. Daniel Pei, Chairman of Punggol Fish Merchant Association, Indonesian exporters and Singapore importers, distinguished participants of webinar and virtual business matching Indonesia-Singapore 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, kindly allow me to express my great appreciation to Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Singapore for great collaboration to organize this second event of the webinar and virtual business matching Indonesia-Singapore 2020, which focuses on fresh seafood products. The first event, which focuses on frozen seafood products, was successfully conducted on November 11, 2020, in collaboration with Seafood Industry Association Singapore. Today's event is very important as one of the efforts to increase seafood trade relations between Indonesia and Singapore. Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will continue to support any activity of export development, including virtual business matching. As I mentioned previously that this activity is as one of the alternative breakthrough in the middle of restriction for face-to-face meetings. I am delighted to be here and honored to deliver remarks to promote Indonesian seafood products to Singapore market. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, export of Indonesian fisheries products has increased steadily at 2.5% per year in volume and 5.80% in value for the last 5 years. This trend even continues during the pandemic of COVID-19 era. In the period of January to September 2020, the export increases both in terms of value by 7.92% and volume by 11.26%. Compared to the same period of 2019, mostly is destined for 5 main markets for Indonesian fisheries products such as United States of America, China, Japan, Asian, and European Union. As you may aware from previous webinar, Indonesia's seafood export to Singapore tend to downturn. In the period of 2015 to 2019, export of Indonesian fisheries products to Singapore shows negative performance, decreasing at the rate of minus 5.52% and 16.17% each year, both volume and value respectively. We think relevant factors affecting this negative trend could be parallelly discussed in Indonesian-Singapore Agribusiness Working Group Forum, which could be considered as a discussion platform to improve supply of Indonesian seafood to Singapore market. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we hope this business matching could be one of the actions to reverse this trend. We therefore invite Singapore importers to increase your contract business with Indonesia exporters through this business matching, even though we fully understand that the price in Singapore is quite competitive. Currently, there are 15 Indonesian fisheries exporters, mainly fresh seafood exporters, have joined this business matching, and we highly encourage Singapore importers to contact us or Indonesian Embassy in Singapore for more inquiries on seafood products. We will try our best to connect you with reliable exporters. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my remarks, I hope these two business matching could derive benefit for both Indonesian exporters and Singapore importers. We also welcome any feedback on this event for future improvement. Finally, I wish you a fruitful result and everyone has a great and blessed success. Thank you. Wabil taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih for the remarks. There are some important points that you mentioned in your remarks. The first is there is a downward trend of the export of seafood from Indonesia to Singapore for the past 5 years. But I also would like to echo the same hope that this webinar could be one way to reverse the trend and could improve the seafood exports from Indonesia to Singapore. Thank you once again for your remarks. And Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded all the remark session for today. Now we come to a question and answer session. So if any participants have any questions, particularly addressed not only to Mr. Chi or Mr. Pe, but also to our ambassador, you may also indicate it in the chat box, or you may type your question in the chat box. In the meantime, we have some questions from the floor and also from the chat box. The first one is the question about, can you explain about the fresh seafood market in Singapore? Perhaps this question can be answered by Mr. Chi or Mr. Pe, like what type of fish or what type of fresh seafood are favorited by the markets in Singapore. Maybe I can give the opportunity to Mr. Chi first, and then Mr. Pe, if you would like to add the points, please.
在我们这个冰鲜市场啊，我们在比较供销这里，就是说刚才这个你要讲一下我们这个区域。
Currently in Singapore, for the chilled seafood products, the products that we have that is quite popular in Singapore right now is threadfin, red grouper, kingfish, red snapper, sea prawns, as well, and also Chinese pomfret, white pomfret, lobsters, and maybe some crabs, etc.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chi. Maybe Mr. Pei, you would like to ask some points?
Currently, the fresh market downtrend is due to the frozen imports by the neighboring countries, and the fact that these seafood companies are promoting the frozen products that last longer, and it's better with better technology, keeps longer compared to fresh seafood with price fluctuation. So I have asked the authorities also, why is there Singapore population is 5-6 million? How come our fresh seafood is declining? But apparently that although the fresh seafood imports is declining, but the frozen seafood imports is actually increasing. So of course, due to the strong currency in Singapore, the Malaysian and neighboring countries tend to sell off their seafood in Singapore. You can offload in Jurong, especially for tingri. When there's a season is here, whether it's Malaysia, Thailand, or Indonesia, all will send to Singapore. So it's really based on fluctuating. As I say, the Singapore market is only so small. So when the market, when it's the season is here, the prices just drop. So that's why sometimes we don't command that kind of price as required. That's the reason why. So like I say, hopefully we can work out something through the exhibition, international exhibition, and how can we, through the trade tax, that we can export to Singapore. Companies I buy from Indonesia and we export to my customer in US. This is what I'm looking towards to actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Pei. We still have the question from the chat box because there was a problem in the audio. Maybe can you repeat once again what are the products, the favorite products of fresh seafood for Singapore markets, and also maybe to export to other countries from Singapore?
Actually, the most common seafood from Indonesia is quite seldom in Singapore. It's always the tingri, terisi, the snapper, sea bream, we call it sea bream, the white snapper or sea bream, terisi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Followed by red grouper, sunuk. They call it sunuk, lodi or sunuk. Of course, the sea prawns and Chinese and white prawn fret. The bawah putih, bawah hitam. All these are one of the major imports from Indonesia. For other than that, these the smaller fishes, not so much. These are the more staple fishes that we supply to local markets and restaurants and hotels. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pei. I just would like to repeat once again in bahasa Indonesia. Jadi beberapa produk komoditas ikan segar yang menjadi favorit di Singapura antara lain kakap putih, kemudian red grouper atau kerapu atau sunu, kemudian ada sea prawn atau udang laut, pomfret atau bawal, baik bawal putih ataupun bawal hitam. Mr. Chi, maybe you have anything to add on the favorite products of fresh seafood to Singapore from Indonesia?
Currently, when we talk about seafood products that we actually take in from Indonesia, the products are as is, like what we recently spoke just now. So it's the trade fin, the red grouper, kingfish, red snapper, sea prawn, and also the various types of pomfrets. Of course, if we're talking about frozen products, then there's much more compared to the fresh ones.
Ya, jadi saya coba terjemahkan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Jadi selain apa yang tadi Pak Daniel sampaikan, ada juga ikan kingfish. Saya kurang tahu tuh bahasa Indonesianya apa. Kingfish dan threadfin itu untuk ikan segar, dan tentu saja kalau misalnya untuk produk-produk yang chill atau yang frozen, ada banyak sekali varian yang juga menjadi favorit untuk masyarakat Singapura. So let me proceed to the next question. also addressed to Mr. Daniel and Mr. Go. How are the quality of fresh seafood from Indonesia to Singapore? Have they met the standards, or do they need anything that needs to be improved so that the exporters can be well aware of these requirements to Singapore?
I would think, I will make a speech first. I would think sometimes it's because of the air freight. Sometimes there are no daily flights. Like from Kalimantan, one of my supplier, they have a Chinese prawn freight coming to Singapore. But due to the lack of flights, I mean, I understand right now because of the pandemic, there won't be a lot of connecting flights connecting in the domestically. So as far as fresh seafood is concerned, I think timely flights are very important. If not, the quality will be affected in a certain sense. Other than that, like from Raoul Islands, all these are from the trawlers and the ship to Jurong. That's not so much on the quality, but I think more so for infrastructure in the airport. Whether when there are delay, are there cold rooms to hold the shipment, or before this, or not keep under the warehouse. The whole quality will be very bad after that.
Yeah, Mr. Go, maybe you can elaborate more.
在印尼这方面供应新加坡这个海产品有分两个部分。
For the supplies that Indonesia actually supplies Singapore in terms of seafood, there are actually two categories.
一部分是运的，
Okay, one is through sea,
一部分是空运的。
and one is through air.
如果是空运这方面的话呢，肯定是一切都没问题的，一切非常。
If we are talking about air freight, so far the quality there's no issues.
船运的就目前科技发达，运输也方便，这个品质也没问题。
This also applies for sea freight. So far there's not really any problems as well when you compare to the yes. For the moment there's no issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Go and Mr. Daniel, for your answer. I have one question from the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Tommy. One challenge that we face, especially from the exporters from Indonesia, is the cold storage facilities, particularly during the logistical process of transporting fish from Indonesia to Singapore. Will Embassy of Indonesia in this regard be able to assist, for example, in finding investors, if there are any investors who want to invest on these facilities, sir?
Yes, I think our challenge, this is one of the challenge to promote and to increase our export from the fish, especially in the lack of refrigerator in the many areas in Indonesia. That's why I will be informed the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Affairs. I think to help the many fisheries in Indonesia, at least in some area, because we have a lot of area in Indonesia is very rich with the resources, especially for fish. And the problem is the electricity and the refrigerator is very limited. So that's why I'm sure that our colleague from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries know about these issues, and I'm sure that the minister is also will be give attention about these issues and help the fisheries. And for the transportation, I think Garuda Indonesia at the moment give more space, especially from their what it called. Bagasi?
Oh, cargo.
Cargo. Yeah, they have using the cargo for export fish, especially from the eastern part of Indonesia. We have Garuda have the direct flight from Makassar to Singapore, and I'm sure that also from Jakarta, Garuda Indonesia also spare their cargo or their space for the cargo to direct to Singapore. So I hope that this is the facilities can used by the exporters and also the importers from Singapore, and I'm sure the quality is more better if you are can using the facilitation, the services that given by the Garuda Indonesia.
Thank you very much, Bapak, for your explanation. And this actually answers the question from Breva Rizky Dia Nugraha that asks, actually, we have good market for Singapore fresh seafood, but during COVID-19, we have problem with limited cargo space. This is the problem. And there is no direct flight from Kupang to Singapore. But as what the ambassador previously mentioned, we have now a new route opening, and it's already open from Makassar to Singapore, direct flight. And basically, the flight is for cargo. So maybe this also can be an option to export seafood from eastern part of Indonesia to Singapore, and that can also answer the question about the limited cargo space. We have one question from the screen. That the seafood prices are more expensive from Indonesia now. Why is that? Do we have Pak Jaya or maybe any person from the Ministry of Fisheries to answer this question? Or maybe Pak Fatoni? We can put them as the panelists. If Pak Fatoni, are you there? Ya, pertanyaannya dalam bahasa Indonesia, harga seafood, produk seafood saat ini dari Indonesia lebih mahal. Apa kira-kira yang menjadi penyebab dari harga seafood yang mahal ini, Pak? Mungkin dapat diberikan gambaran kepada kami, para peserta webinar. Ya, saya ulangi kembali ya pertanyaannya Pak Fatoni, harga produk seafood dari Indonesia saat ini menjadi lebih mahal. Kira-kira apa penyebabnya, Pak? Mungkin boleh dibagikan kepada kami gambarannya. Silakan, Bapak. Ya, mungkin apakah harga seafood yang mahal ini juga dirasakan oleh para eksportir mungkin di Indonesia atau seperti apa, Pak? Mungkin Pak Fatoni atau Pak Helwi bisa membantu menjawab. Ya. Ya, mungkin sambil menyiapkan jawaban, we have one attendant raise her hand, Indah Kumalasari. Perhaps we can invite her to ask question. Silakan Ibu Indah. Ibu Indah. Ibu Indah Kumalasari, apa bisa mendengar? Yeah, perhaps we can now back to Pak Jaya from Ministry of Marine and Fisheries dengan pertanyaan yang tadi Bapak, harga-harga seafood di Indonesia dari Indonesia sekarang menjadi lebih mahal. Kira-kira apa penyebabnya? Perhaps if you can share some ideas. Kalau Bapak bisa memberikan beberapa gambaran, silakan Bapak.
Ya, terima kasih Bu Ija. Thank you, Ibu Ija and Excellency. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining on this webinar. So I would like to share regarding the price of the seafood from Indonesia. I think now I think the Indonesian domestic demand also increasing. The first factor, and also I think also the market also growing. For instance, China also we have information that the growing of China also more than 21%. But I know that the trend I think is because of one of the competitiveness of the price in Singapore. It's very competitive, so it is factor that we have to also communicate, and we can intense especially through like this moment, like a virtual webinar. So if we have some more frequently webinar, I think will be one of the instrument to how we can engage more engagement with Singapore market. But for the price, I think Indonesia is still we have provide the youth infrastructure and the also we also improve the logistics sector to improve our efficiency. I think now I think if we look more general, I think we the price I think is more competitive in Indonesia. I think it's more efficient. I mean, as the logistics sector in it's also more efficient. So I think in the future, I think we will have some price will also very efficient. So I think if the brand we can focusing on the what kind of the particular commodity, and I think we can distinguish between the whole commodity and maybe the particular commodity. So if we have some information what kind of commodity that price is higher than the other source from Thailand or the specific commodities from the floor, what kind of commodity that asking for me, and then we can check it. But I think in general, I think the price from Indonesia is quite now it's very more efficient. So I think it's very can be competitive. We can compare with the other ASEAN member sources in the region. I think we can also supply to Singapore with the price at good price, yeah. Comparing with the other source from ASEAN supplying countries. Maybe that's my question to Icha.
Thank you very much, Pa Jaya, for your explanation. And I take note that there is one important point about logistic issues that we also have to deal. It is also in line with what was mentioned by Ambassador Tommy, that we have logistic issues on the on the transport and also on the cold storage of the fresh seafood. So we hope that we can also solve this issue so that we can improve more fresh seafood exports from Indonesia to Singapore. We have one, not actually a question from the chat box, that we have the same problem from Borneo. Flight is not connecting. Perhaps this is also something that we take note, Bapak Dubes. There are many exporters coming from different parts of Indonesia, but due to the transportation or cargo limitation, they cannot really do exports directly from their origin or from their area to Singapore. And there is one question from the chat box. Maybe this is the last question that we are going to answer. How does Singapore respond to illegal fish entering Singapore from areas adjacent to Singapore? For example, Karimun, Belakang Padang, Natuna, Anambas, Bintan, etc. Maybe Mr. Go or Mr. Daniel, you would like to share some views or ideas about this?
Okay, for my side, we for about when Mr. President Jokowi took over, they implemented about the trawling regulations. I think they're quite strict on trawling. So actually, my supplier from the island Moro actually stopped trawling. So basically, for my side, illegal fishing has not entered my port in Senoko, Punggol side. But for Jurong side, I'm not too sure how they manage this issue. But as far as I'm concerned, the Indonesian authorities are managing quite well ever since the previous administration, Susi's time. They are banning on illegal fishing or exporting from these countries very well, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. Yes.
Okay, maybe Mr. Go.
Okay, for in terms of Jurong Fishery Port, there are currently no issues when it comes to so-called trawling itself. Everything goes through a certain process. It goes through the process of the permits and documentation. So it's checked rather stringently now. So at the moment, there's no issues in fishery port itself. Yes, especially under SFA currently, it's extremely strict. So there's no such issues at the moment, according to Mr. Kotantri.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Go, for your explanation, and also Mr. Daniel. And before we conclude the webinar session for today, I would like to ask Ambassador Suryo Pratomo, maybe you have some words or some views, Pak. Silakan.
Thank you, Ida. I think this webinar is very fruitful because we know exactly which area that is still a problem. We must be aware that we are still facing the pandemic COVID-19. So that's why transportation from Indonesia to Singapore is still very limited. So one question is coming from the Borneo that they have some problem to transport the product. Yes, I'm sure that our colleague from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fishery knowing about these issues. But once again, because the very limited transportation that we have, the Garuda Indonesia at the moment just only open the flight from Makassar to Singapore directly. But hopefully you are, especially for the exporters, realize about these challenges, and please, I think, use the opportunity that you have a direct flight from Makassar, and maybe you can discuss with the airlines company, especially from Borneo to Makassar. Hopefully you can arrange the direct time, the direct flight, and also can arrange the right time. So hopefully your product is not need to waiting in Makassar, but in the same day can bring from Makassar direct to Singapore. And secondly, I think I hope, especially for my colleague in Indonesia, please don't see Singapore just only for the market. Singapore is maybe can be asked to make some joint ventures to re-export the product to other countries. So Singapore maybe can use as a hub to export the product, Indonesian product, fish product, not only to Singapore, but also for the other countries. Yesterday, I just remind by our colleague in Singapore that Singapore have FTA, free trade arrangement with the European Union, that they have privilege to export maybe more than 1,250 tons, maybe the product, especially agriculture product from Singapore to European Union. I think this is also the opportunity. So that's why hopefully after this webinar, you can contact directly with your partner in Singapore, and once again, not only limited to make some cooperation only for export to Singapore, but please thinking the big opportunity that you have, how to make the Singapore as a hub to export to the other countries. I think this is the very challenging, and hopefully you can be succeed. And the last, I think, Pak Jaya, I hope that you can note what the problem that faced by the fishermen in Indonesia, that they are need the cold storage. So hopefully the ministry can help them to propose and to support with the cold storage. So that's because this is very important to make the quality of the fresh fish from Indonesia can meet with the expectation from importer from Singapore. So thank you for your attending this webinar. Hopefully we can cooperate more further. And once again, the Embassy of Indonesia in Singapore is always open to support and to facilitate. Me and all my team in the Embassy can call 24 hours. We once again we can support, because here also attend our trade attaché, Pak Rukmaksono, will be help you if you have any problem for export import with the Indonesia. And also we have also the attaché for finance. If you have any problem with the custom, I think Embassy can facilitate and support you. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for your valuable insights. If I may summarize some of the points in Bahasa Indonesia. Jadi tadi Bapak Dubes menyampaikan bahwa tentu saja memang masih ada kendala, khususnya di bidang logistik untuk ekspor ikan atau produk seafood segar dari Indonesia ke Singapura. Namun dengan adanya rute-rute yang telah ada, misalnya penerbangan dari Makassar ke Singapura, mungkin itu adalah sesuatu yang dapat juga dimanfaatkan. Para eksporter dari kawasan timur Indonesia mungkin dapat berdiskusi untuk dapat menggunakan rute-rute yang sudah ada tersebut. Dan juga Bapak Dubes menyampaikan bahwa lihat Singapura bukan hanya sebagai pasar, tapi menjadi tempat untuk dapat melakukan ekspor kembali. Karena Singapura sejatinya juga adalah negara hub yang menghubungkan Indonesia bukan hanya ke Singapura saja, tapi juga ke negara-negara lain di dunia, misalnya Amerika, Eropa, dan negara-negara lainnya. Dan tentu saja dengan adanya kerjasama yang baik dengan Kementerian KKP, kami juga mengharapkan bahwa Pak Jaya dan tim juga dapat membantu untuk memfasilitasi terutama kendala-kendala yang dialami oleh para eksportir, khususnya untuk fasilitas pendingin, Pak, untuk dapat memastikan kualitas produk-produk seafood yang segar dapat tetap terjaga untuk dapat memenuhi syarat-syarat atau persyaratan yang dibutuhkan di Singapura. Kemudian kami tim ekonomi di KBRI, kami juga senantiasa siap membantu. Di sini ada atas perdagangan apabila ada masalah terkait ekspor impor, ada juga atas keuangan apabila Bapak Ibu memiliki masalah mengenai custom atau cukai, kami siap untuk dihubungi dan kami siap untuk membantu agar bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu para eksporter dari Indonesia dapat meningkatkan ekspornya ke Singapura dan ke negara lainnya di dunia. I think that was the brief summary of what His Excellency just explained to us. And Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, with that concludes the webinar session for fisheries for today. And I would like to remind the exporters and importers that B2B meeting will commence at 1 p.m. Once again, we will begin the B2B meetings at 1 p.m. and we will send the link of B2B meetings via email for those exporters who have inquiries from importers from Singapura. So pertemuan B2B atau business to business akan dilaksanakan pada jam 1 waktu Singapura atau jam 12 waktu Jakarta. Jadi apabila para eksportir telah memiliki pertanyaan dari importir di Singapura, kami akan mengarrange atau kami akan mengatur ruang pertemuan private yang akan diisi oleh para eksportir dan importir. And allow me to also extend our highest appreciation to all parties who made this event possible: Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia, Seafood, the Punggol Fish Merchant, and also Singapore Fish Merchant Association, and all the team of Economic Division who made this event possible. To conclude, we thank you very much for your kind attention and participation, and see you in our next event. I am Marlisa